It is Tuesday, January 10th. I think that's Elvis's birthday. Can anybody confirm?
Nope,
it or
the
not? The 8th? Okay, sorry. Sorry for the false hope, guys. Tuesday, January 10th, 2023, 6 p.m. Planning Commission is about to start. Calling the meeting to order. All commissioners are present. Yep, check. If anybody can take out their cell phones and make them not make dings and bings and other kinds of weird noises, that would be great. And if you're able to stand, please stand. Let's lead a quick prayer. I'll lead that prayer, and Mike will say the pledge, or lead us in the pledge. God, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you again for this city, Lord. We thank you so much that we had this opportunity to serve her. Help us to treat this city well, and this city to treat its citizens well. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We have called the meeting to order. Check. Approval of minutes. This would be from our December 2022 meeting on December 13th. Everybody reviewed your packets, got it? Any questions, comments, concerns? It was a lengthy one. Almost made one page only. We have a motion on the minutes. I got a motion by everybody. We're going to go with Matthew with a second by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. No old business. Moving on to new business. We have two items that are public hearings. Process will be, I'll call for a public hearing motion. We'll go into public hearing. We'll hear from staff. We'll hear from the applicant. We'll open it up to the audience. Close the public hearing and make a motion. We'll just do one and see how it goes. Item 4A is going to be a public hearing for 2003 Government Street. Parcel ID is 610-580-10000 through 610-580-19000. Quote Investments LLC and Lucky 9 LLC requesting to rezone from RM2 Multifamily District to CMX2 Community Commercial Mixed District. Do I have a motion to go into public hearing?
So
Motion Mike, second Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are in public hearing. I would assume this would be a wade, is it?
That's correct. Thank you. Just going to give you a little intro to both of these. The two items that are on tonight's agenda are similar rezoning requests, both requesting the same zoning district for two close but different pieces of property. That's why there are two separate reports, two separate motions, and so forth on there. The first piece of property is 2003 Government, which is shown on the screen up there. It's the westernmost of the, you might say, small cottages, Katrina-like cottages that were put on this property about 10 years ago or so. The specific request for this one is to rezone the property from the RM2 multifamily district to the CMX2, which is the community commercial / mixed use district. As you can see on the report of the photos there, this is the cottages at Oak Park West. This is a condominium development of 9 detached dwellings on a private drive. As you can see also from the zoning in the area, there's CH, which is the red, to the west. Then CMX2 abutting on the east side of the property. Also CH is there immediately to the south on Government Street. Give you a bit of history on this. The property was rezoned in 2009. Prior to that was the C3, which is now the CH, Highway Commercial District. It was zoned to R4, which is basically the equivalent of RM2, Multifamily Residential District. When y'all recommended the approval, you concluded that the highway commercial zoning was no longer appropriate due to some of the changes in the neighborhood, including the demolition of the Person Optics building, and because of the growing central business district. The conclusion was that permitting multifamily housing was consistent with comprehensive plan policies. Down below on that same page, 2, is the list of uses that are permitted by right in the CMX2 district. These are also the ones that are not permitted in the RM2 district. Now, there are a number of, a few commercial uses that are not listed in there due to the fact of, such as a bar, I think wine and liquor store, due to the proximity of the school and other similar properties. Those would not be possible on this property. But from a zoning perspective, the CMX2 district is consistent with what's existing to the east. No doubt about that. But the what is on the property is, as I said, it's developed with 9 detached dwellings and parking designed for dwelling units. That's typically 2 spaces per dwelling unit. Rezoning to CMX2 brings the potential for the conversion of those dwellings to offices or retail establishments, which could put more of a strain on the available parking spaces, since those types of uses typically have a greater parking demand than dwelling units do, in terms also of traffic also. That one of the, as you pointed out, and I pointed out, one of the permitted uses in the CMX2 district is short-term rental usage. That would be permitted by right in this district. So with the potential for to convert these dwelling units to a short-term rental purposes, in the staff's opinion, conclusion, that relates to a policy decision that is the responsibility of you as a recommending body and the Board of Aldermen as the final decision-making body. And that really concludes what I have to say. If you notice, I do have 2 potential motions down at the bottom of that page, depending on which way you want to go. Would recommend that also when you make the motion either for or against the rezoning, that you do include the reference to the criteria for a change in zoning, of that there was either a mistake in the original zoning, or the character of the neighborhood has changed to such an extent that to justify the reclassification. That language is, you can see it's at the top of page 3 of 3, if you want to be able to include that in the motion, but that is we would request that terminology be included in your motion. And that concludes what I have to say, and I know Mr. Cloyd is here to make his presentation for the rezoning. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them at this time. Thanks.
Anything for staff before we call up the applicant?
I've got one. Just a quick question. I noticed it's on a private drive that goes CMX2. Would the city have to take over that drive?
No, the drive would still stay private. There'd be no change in the character of that drive. It'd still be a private drive. The responsibility of the HOA would be to own and maintain it.
Okay, I thought when you put businesses on there, I thought that would require city access.
Not necessarily,
okay.
No.
Thank you.
Do the buildings have assigned parking?
I don't know of.
We can ask.
Mr. Cole could ask that. I really don't know if they have how that parking works. I mean, that would be something that is under the control of the HOA.
Anybody else got anything for Wade? So I do, on that same note about parking. I always try to approach zoning not as like the current project or what's currently there. Like, what's the intent of even bringing up the parking and retail? And because somebody could come in and demo it and start from scratch, right? So we're really kind of rezoning more for the future, in my estimation, I guess. I just didn't know if there was anything behind the comment about all that. If there was anything we didn't know about plans or anything.
No, there's no plans. I think we're just looking at what's there on the property.
Sure.
What do we have to deal with right now, and what's the what potential does this zoning change have?
Right, and we don't really create an issue of a non-compliant by rezoning the property either. It doesn't look like from what I saw. Just the non-compliant use.
No.
Like it's still compliant.
Residential is still permitted.
Sure.
Correct.
Okay. I just didn't understand that intent. Okay. Anybody else? No. Once twice sold. Did the applicant want to speak?
I'd like to.
Go
Briefly.
Go ahead.
To briefly address parking on that site specifically, I wasn't made aware of that until Friday, but I didn't open the email until today. I missed it. We're all fallible, right? On that site, we have 4,200 square feet of building space, 14 to 17 required parking spaces for office and retail, and we have 18 parking spots, so we are compliant on that side. I hadn't run a parking calc on the other one, but I believe we can justify it, and Wade and I worked together on parking calculations a dozen times, and anyways, just kind of, I agree, I didn't understand. So
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared to talk about it. I do have a slide on it, but I'll skip later. So
Amanda, you got his.
I'm going to talk about two projects at once, both these next motion, both this motion and the next potential ones, cottages at Oak Park, cottages at Oak Park West. My name is Joe Cloyd. I live at 433 East Beach Drive, and I'm the co-owner of both of these properties. From a very high level, we plan to make the case for changing character of the neighborhood to justify the rezoning. From a high level, downtown is pushing out in every which way possible, and the obvious extension is to the east. This area between Martin Luther King Drive and Holcomb there's been a pattern of the city rezoning properties in that area from residential to commercial. To my knowledge, there's only 3 parcels that are currently residential in that lane. This would constitute the rezone of 2 of those 3 remaining in that district. So I think it's a consistent activity from what the city has done in the past. High level, again, the use of golf carts has expanded downtown, and certainly that would include this area, which is in the golf cart district, which could yield more commercial activity and has. Growth in business and commerce evidenced by increased sales activity that plays into the golf cart comment. The next slide, you mind driving for me? Thank you. The next slide, this is a little bit dated, but the sales tax increase in Ocean Springs has increased $1.8 million over the past 16 years, or 67%, which is derived obviously from commercial activity, not residential. And so I think this again plays into that direction. Next slide is site-specific change in character of the neighborhood. Both properties, as Wade said, are adjacent to CMX2 and are surrounded completely by commercial. They don't touch another residentially zoned property. One of the sites mostly touches CH, which is a much more high-impact commercial zoning. He's already been through that, so 2 slides. Both properties are included in the downtown overlay district in the UDC. Got a map of that next. The building types that are desired or recommended development standards in the overlay district are live, work, mixed use, commercial, and civic buildings. I think this is a classic mixed use. Both properties are classic mixed use potential developments. Next slide. Ocean Springs Blueprint, city's comprehensive plan, shows this as commercial center, low intensity. Again, Wayne mentioned this. I've got the map that demonstrates that on the next slide, and I zoomed in on the next slide as best I could. That pink is that's the best I could do. But it's intended to accommodate smaller mixed-use activity centers, and I think the cottage parks are absolutely willing to work, designed to do that, evidenced by Cottage Square adjacent to cottages at Oak Park. Next slide is development tiers reflect a future condition. So the comprehensive plan was written 13 years ago, and it was prescribing these areas of town to be commercial in 10 to 20 years. We're in that window now, based on what the comprehensive plan saw happening 13 years ago. Next slide. Three more points. I mentioned the Martin Luther King to Holcomb. Cottage Square represents a precedent for this request on an adjacent parcel for a development that's extremely similar to the cottages at Oak Park development. It was rezoned from, I don't know the previous zoning, but it was zoned to CMX2 in the last 5 years. I should have pulled the minutes, but I didn't. Cottages at Oak Park also has a non-conforming retail building on Government Street. The record store, Maynard's, been there a long time, is on this property and exists as a non-conforming retail commercial use. And it'd be great to get it in line with an appropriate conforming use via CMX 2. Because if it ever were to shut down, it could not come back as commercial under the current zoning of commercial retail. Public need is also a clear piece of what needs to be demonstrated, and I have 5 points there. As I appreciate it, the City and Planning Commission have desired to change that zone from Martin Luther King to Holcomb to commercial, evidenced by the comprehensive plan. This will help achieve that. The plan fits in with the comprehensive, the request fits in with the comprehensive plan request. Increase in tourism has created a demand for more commercial and mixed-use development in the downtown overlay district, which this is in. Local demand is wanting more high-end commercial, evidenced by recent development, some of which I've been a part of, some of which I've not, and via the expansion of downtown through the golf carts. And the other public need is when these properties were renovated years ago, they were dilapidated mobile home parks. And I believe that clear evidence in change over time is mobile home park to residential cottage community to mixed use. It's a very natural progression that this comprehensive plan supports. I'm going to skip the parking slide because we've kind of covered that. Keep going. And I'm going to skip the mistake, but I do have some notes about, this seems like it could have been a spot zone as it's not touching another residentially zoned piece of property. And that essentially concludes my presentation. Thank you all. I wanted to be brief but try to cover the major points on change of character and public need. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
I got anything for the applicant now? We'll hear the public hearing and bring it back up if we need to.
Okay.
All right, real quick, kind of a little bit out of turn. However, I do want to mention it looks like we have 4 emails of that are related to this. 3 appear to be in favor of the rezoning request, and 1 appears to be not in favor. I trust everybody has seen that. Does anybody want to make a motion to accept these into the minutes?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion by Matthew, second by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So all I did, these will be on the permanent record. All right, is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak in favor of, in support of rezoning? This is, we're on West right now, right?
Correct.
Yeah, we're on the cottage. The ones on the West. Anybody want to speak in favor of? Once, twice sold. Anybody?
In favor.
Okay, come on.
Can I just do it from here?
Usually name and address at the
Okay,
microphone.
all right.
We got to have it for the recording so Amanda can do what it
Okay.
is Amanda does.
I'm Jenny Green, and I live on 2003 Government Street, number 7. I say I live there. We purchased it as a second home. My husband and I just opened Firehouse Subs here in town, and y'all have been super supportive, so I appreciate everybody eating with us. We purchased as a second home, but the plan and hope is that we can use it for Airbnb because we're really not the people that can have a second home, but we have 3 restaurants along the Gulf Coast. So to have a place to sleep at night rather than driving an hour and a half back to Hattiesburg. And then in addition to that, y'all's town is so unique and so nice. You're not saturated with a lot of big box stores or chains. And I realize Firehouse is a chain, but we run it like a mom and pop. I would just like to see cottages used for Airbnb rather than have a Holiday Inn pop up or a Motel 6 or whatever. I just think it keeps it nice, and that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Miss Jenny. Did you want to say something?
Not really.
Okay. You don't have to. You'll get a chance later. Anybody else in favor or support of? Anybody against? Anybody in opposition to the Cottage Park West rezoning? Once, twice sold. Anybody got anything else? Joe, I assume you don't have anything else to say in response to the...
If y'all have a question, I'm happy to answer.
Anybody got anything for Joe? All right, do I have a motion to close public hearing? Motion Matthew, second Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, any discussion? My only discussion item is I always try to approach these as the property, not the owner. Rezoning will go with the property. It does not revert if Joe leaves, so we are looking at this. Do we think that a CMX2 that is touching CMX2 and CH is appropriate? Personally, I'm glad they didn't go for CH because they probably could have made a good argument there, and that's the one that would be scary.
I agree.
All right, any other discussion, or does anybody want to take a stab at a motion?
On any potential motions, just what Wade said, just if we can include the language at the top.
Yeah, if you believe it should be approved, I would definitely say due to a change of character and a public meeting as part of the motion. Or if you think it's a mistake.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the rezoning for 2003 Government Street from RN2 to multifamily residential to CMX to community commercial mixed-use district. The findings are that the area is changing character. Yeah, changing character of the neighborhood and the surrounding area is to move it to commercial. So.
Okay. Motion by Matthew to approve the rezoning based on the change of character. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Joey. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And we did get the 2003 correct, I believe, correct? We're on the 2003 right now, right, Wade?
Correct.
Joe's nodding, so we'll go with Joe. All right. Item 4B, same process. Public hearing, 2207 Government Street, parcel ID number 610-580-20000 through 610-580-50000, Floyd Investments LLC and Cottages at Oak Park LLC, requesting to rezone from RM2 multifamily district to CMX2 community commercial mixed-use district. Do I have a motion to go to public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Kevin, second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hey, funny thing, we got 4 letters in your packets. Do I have a motion to make these a part of the record in this one? Motion by Mike, second by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so both of them tend to reference both letters. I think Amanda will let you figure it out from there, but it's good to go. Did I go to a public hearing yet?
Yes. No.
No? Motion to go to public hearing.
So moved.
You did.
I did. Motion to make sure we're in public. All right, wait.
Okay, thank you. I'll make this fairly brief. The issues are very similar to the previous one in 2003 government. I'll kind of highlight what are just basically some of the differences in this one. This is, as is 2207 Government Street, the easternmost of the cottages at Oak Park. In this case, this one has 29 detached dwellings, again on a private drive, just like 2003 had. As you can see, the surrounding zoning is similar, not quite the same, in that this property has CH to the east and CMX2 abutting on the west, and some CH also immediately to the west of this, and across the street. Although that is, I believe that is school property, so it's not quite the not that commercial use. This again was rezoned in 2009. At that time, it was previously zoned in the R5 mobile home residential district. It was rezoned to R4 at that time. Feeling was that the central business district had moved eastward, and also the mobile home park that was on the property at the time was inconsistent with the surrounding area, and that the proposed use and zoning would be a feat improvement to the area. Again, from a zoning perspective, the CMX2 is consistent with the existing zoning in the area, but again, the potential for the impact on parking could be an issue, depending on what goes in. And again, with the potential for short-term rental use, staff's conclusion is that is a policy decision for the Planning Commission and the Board of Aldermen. And that concludes our presentation on it. Again, 2 motions, and we request that you include reference to the changing the character or the criteria for changing zoning as part of that motion, whichever way it goes. Thank you.
Anybody got anything for Wade? So Joe, in the interest of saving your breath, would you like me to see about making a motion to incorporate this into the minutes so that it will still be attached to this?
Please, Chair.
Okay, anybody want to accept this in the minutes? Motion by Kevin, second by Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. I'm not sure if that was necessary, but it's done. Anybody in the audience want to speak in favor of Oak Park Cottages, not west, 2207 Government Street? Anybody want to speak in favor? Anybody in opposition? Anybody want to speak about the cottages? Joe, do you want to reply to the audience request? Do I have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor, I'm sorry, Matthew, second by me. Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, we are out of public hearing. Anybody got any questions, comments, concerns for Wade, applicant, or otherwise? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to rezone 2207 Government Street from RM2 to CMX2, given a change in character to the neighborhood and a public need.
Okay, I have a motion by Kevin, second by, was that Marshall? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Okay, so both of these items will go on not next week, right?
No, they'll be
Right.
advertised for the first one in February.
First week in February, first Tuesday, same bat place, same bat channel will be your official decision. All right, general public comment. Any off-agenda items anybody want to discuss? Hey, there's Donovan. Hey, name and microphone, name and address at the microphone.
Certainly. My name's Donovan Scruggs, 307 Pine Drive here in Ocean Springs. And I wanted to discuss short-term rentals in the Government Street Overlay District, which y'all heard about tonight. One reason the application had to come forth is because, of course, the cap of 75 has been met, and the rezoning is basically a way to allow short-term rentals, which in this area is a good thing. Now, one way that we could have, I've got a property that I'm probably going to be before this body, if not next month, probably 2 months later, that I may have to ask for a rezoning for the same thing. I can definitely point out changing neighborhood character, just like Joe did on his application. But, the question is, do we want to do what's right by possibly allowing short-term rentals in this area where they need to go, or do we want to just continue to rezone properties as necessary? All I'm asking is, I'd rather this be corrected through a policy matter, which means to allow short-term rentals in the Government Street Overlay District or the Downtown Overlay District and along the Port Corridor District. The way the short-term rental ordinance is written, I think y'all are familiar with it. It says basically if it's in a residentially zoned property, then it has to get to the 75 number cap. So tweaking the short-term rental ordinance and the Downtown Overlay District, as I've stipulated in that proposal, would get us there. Now, I know that y'all are supposed to be looking at a more comprehensive approach to look at the short-term rental process, but in doing so, what it's going to amount to is potential other individuals coming before you asking for a rezoning, simply because in this specific area, because the cap has been met, and we're changing ordinances can take a while. I've done it all my life, or at least a good part of it, so I know the process, and I know it's not always a priority. But to the property owners who own these properties and are trying to register with them, it is a priority. So anything you guys do to help push this along, or whatever you can do, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Donovan. What is the update, Carolyn and/or Wade, on the grand review of short-term rentals?
We've been collecting data and information. We should have a draft. I've got to go over it with the mayor and get some input from him first, but I should have something to bring back to you when we were saying March, and for the March meeting.
Okay.
We'll have it ready and drafted to advertise for that meeting.
So I was sitting in the Biloxi City Council meeting one time, and I did hear them reference, and I don't know anything about it. I didn't follow up, but their short-term rental overlay district, I think they have. I know that they do, kind of target areas. I think there's something to this. The downtown overlay district would be where these things probably are going to be more frequented and probably, where more people would want to be staying. I do think we need to heavily consider, something. If it's not, did y'all?
We've got that, and that's in the mix. We're looking at, like you said, comprehensively, how the mix of commercial versus residential's, what is happening and is the need being met. So we're looking at it qualitatively as well as quantitatively, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, that is one of the things that we will, we've received that input, and it'll be looked at along with everything else.
Do you have kind of a map or anything established yet? I know that's one thing.
We're working on mapping them. Yeah, we've got all the addresses, so we're working on mapping them to just kind of see what the trend has been, where they seem to be gravitating towards, to see if there's any way that we can provide some guidance within the ordinance to keep it going in that direction if it's good, or change it if it's not a positive thing. So, we want to look at it. I know that Pastor Christian has looked at theirs, that other cities are reviewing and updating their ordinances as well, now that it's been there for a little bit. So, that's in the mix, and we'll look at that along with everything else.
I mean, I could almost see allowing it in one or the other or both quarters, like Donovan proposed, and then actually reducing the cap elsewhere or something. I don't know.
Yeah, once we see the ratio, we'll see, what can be done to keep it going in the right direction.
What's the process now? Someone is calling in and asking about a short-term rental.
If it's for residential, commercial still goes on just like normal. If they call in for residential, Amanda puts them on a list. So we get their name and contact information and the property address and just put them on the list. If a permit becomes available, in other words, if someone doesn't renew, then we go to the first person on the list and work down until someone's ready. But right now we're not taking applications because we don't know when there'll be a spot. But we are taking all of their information so that they can be reached.
Do you know about how many?
Almost 40.
Ooh.
Yeah, there seemed to be a rush on them.
I think we probably need to address this as quickly as possible so that if it doesn't become 40, it becomes 60 or 80 or a couple of we got now.
I would reiterate one of Donovan's point. It can be to the city, it may not be the top priority, but to the homeowners, it can be.
Right.
I live that life nowadays.
Sure,
I feel it a little bit more, and I use.
And it's not that it's not a priority, but we're trying to make sure that we get all the information so we don't make any changes that have unintended consequences.
Of those on the list, how many of those fall into this overlay? Would you have any idea?
I have no idea. I'd have to tally that up.
I don't know the addresses.
Where is the discussion that happened last meeting reference processing the request?
There's the process is correct and it is being followed.
Okay, so there's no problem. Okay.
Unless you want the application.
Well, I think he was referring to one particular.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody got anything else? Any thoughts on this?
Nope.
Nope. Any other audience requests, comments, concerns? Name and address, please.
Alan Stanfield, 100 White Boulevard, Ocean Springs. In regards to short-term permits in residential areas, I think the issue that we're running into with clients is they ask planning and they say the board, or they're following their lead. They ask their aldermen say the commission is studying it and has some information they're going over. So I think ultimately what's getting frustrating to the general public is that nobody really has an answer for what's actually being done, who's actually looking at information. Because if you ask an alderman, I've got emails that say, y'all are looking at it, and I'm listening to y'all, and I don't think y'all are looking at it. So that's just kind of, I think, a little more clarity on what's actually being studied, who got a survey, supposedly, what the way it's going to move forward. That's just what people want to know. Because
we will get it in March, and then it will become in our purview. But as of right now, I don't think anybody's really just actively doing it. Other than the planning
so when people ask their aldermen and they tell them y'all are looking at something, when they watch this meeting, they're gonna be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. So they
Yeah.
care a lot to.
I think that's a verbiage thing with planning department versus planning commission.
People tend to use them interactive, interchangeably, and the commission is not the same as the department, is not
Well,
the same
and
as,
in that regard, I think people were told a couple months in October, and now they're told a couple months in January. So
we told them it would be about 6 months till we had something to bring back, so.
I'm just repeating what's being repeated.
Can we, like, if it comes up at the Board of Aldermen, just
I'll-
make sure they get their,
I'll talk to the mayor, make sure he knows, and he can, set them all.
let everybody
And another
knows.
thing, even on the application today, it was saying something about the policy would be for the Board of Aldermen regarding what an intended use for a zoning change might be, which I thought was a little interesting that was even on there. But if, I guess if that's the case, it should be passed on to them. But has the board pushed this policy? Because there was a moratorium brought to the board and they didn't vote for that. So it's not like they're bringing anything to it. They're thinking y'all are bringing things to them. Y'all are thinking they're bringing things to y'all.
The issue is they just decided that a moratorium wasn't necessary. I just was asking authorization to not take applications because of the backup. And so they said, no, we don't need a moratorium. We'll just direct you to do that. And so that's why that didn't happen.
But I guess where'd the moratorium come from? Like who put that forward?
I requested the verbiage. I mean, they just decided because we were getting inundated and we were at the cap. So we wanted an answer. We wanted some direction from them as far as to let them know that we're at the cap. And we weren't just speaking on staff's volition, that the board was aware of what we were needing to do.
I do agree with you. There was a clarity issue
Yeah.
because I even had a alderman that say that, well, we're waiting on you. We're
Right.
waiting on
Yeah,
y'all.
they
So
think
I
they're
do,
waiting on
I
y'all.
do understand the clarity issue, but I do think it's a terminology.
It's a verbiage
It's a
thing.
verbiage thing, but I do understand that because I was actually told that myself.
Well, moratorium at least had an end date. I mean, right now it's just like,
Well, I guess I'm a little confused too. If there was no moratorium, why aren't we taking applications?
Well, when you fill out an application, it's a lot of time and effort. So what we're telling people is your name is on the list. There's 30 people ahead of you. We'll call you, we'll get in touch with you when it gets closer. If you're getting close, then you can fill out an application. We also didn't know if the rules would change during that time. So rather than having people go to the time and effort to fill out application, if it gets close to it, then they can fill it out.
And I'll add to that, if we tweak an application for an administrative error or anything like that, we always have the applicant refill out one. So until we are actually having permits that we can fill, then there's really no purpose on having them fill an application.
It's just the
Because
time
we're
and
gonna
effort.
We're
It's
gonna
not
have
a
to
hard
refill it
line
out.
to saying like we're not taking. It's just
It just did make sense
It's
to
not
continue
physically
to take
taking
them.
paper application.
I think there's all of this just sounds like a clarity and
It's a clarification, and
just
I'll.
sharing with the public what is actually being researched. Somebody said there were surveys sent out. Has anybody gotten a survey?
We sent surveys to the current permit holders to get information about their activity that we wouldn't normally get. So we sent surveys out to them to ask questions about their rentals, about any problems, about, how often they do rent and issues that they may have come across to get their input. So that was the survey that was sent out.
I need to clarify one thing you said. You said you're taking names, but not applications.
Not the application form, so,
But you're putting in their names on
Correct.
the list.
yes.
In order that they call, say
Correct.
what's up.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're not losing.
No, they're not losing anything, they just don't have to fill out the form until it
Yeah,
gets closer
okay.
to
I
time.
think that's the one thing that needs to be clarified, so people know the process is moving.
Right.
And they're not gonna lose a place in line because we don't know what the next step is.
And what we had discussed in that board meeting is that it would take about 6 months. We wanted to kind of look at, we've been gathering information as far as when the ordinance was enacted and developed, we didn't have very many hotels. Now we have a lot more small boutique hotels. So what's the ratio if we counted those as rooms? So we're trying to look at the whole, what the purpose of having short-term rentals was to fill a need that the city could not fill with our lack of hotels. So we're trying to look at, so we've been collecting the numbers available, like I said, Wade's putting them on the map so we can look at the locations relative to what seems to be successful. We're assuming if they're still in operation that they're not unsuccessful. So just kind of seeing where the trend is and where they're popping up, and then so that we can make some recommendations. We're looking at some of the things that the other cities have done. Like I said, Pass Christian just updated theirs, and somebody else at Long Beach, I think. So we're looking to see if they have made changes that we might want to consider as well. So there's a variety of things, the fee level, some of the smaller rules and regulations to see if any of those need to be adjusted.
And you
To
feel
ensure
very
quality.
confident We'll get this by March.
I have one additional thought for you.
I'm sure.
I think if you put this down very succinctly
Mhm.
and put it in your presentation at the next board meeting for the Board of Aldermen, so everybody in the city is speaking from the same reference point. We won't have somebody come and say, we're confused, we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'll work with the mayor to see how he wants to distribute that, but,
Yeah, I think you just stated it there, because I'm like Joey, I've heard them saying, like, aren't y'all doing that? Well, not yet, we're gonna be.
well, they know it comes through you, so that's the next time that they will hear it is after it comes through you,
So I
so.
know Don's police station wasn't on the agenda, but I mean, in the meantime, should this be something that we consider and bring up for our next board meeting?
We are looking at that as, we would say that that would be considered as we look at short-term rentals, since it does directly affect short-term rentals. And to see if that's something that we, look at all the overlay districts in the same way and look and see if there's, any valid or purpose in including that. So I think it would be part of the short-term rental. It doesn't need to be done separately.
But if doing that, if we can get to the end result quicker and more efficiently, why wouldn't we just look at
It won't
this?
get you there quicker because we don't have time to advertise, it's the advertising dates and developing the draft and everything. I don't think it'll get you there quicker.
The problem with the overlay district is there's a lot of properties that fall outside of that. If you look at where all those little dots are,
Mhm.
outside.
That's what we're looking at is, where are all the existing short-term rentals and the
And
the
then
overlay district.
what's the potential in the overlay district for if all the existing homes went short-term rental without the cap?
Would it be difficult to pull those names that we have and addresses and see how many of those would actually fall into this district?
That's what he's working on.
He's working on that now.
So I will just kind of close out my comments and say that I'm not going to say that Donovan has got the golden ticket and got it exactly right, but I do believe there is a lot of merit to at least considering. As y'all go through something that's, looking at it always is good when it fits in the box you already got built.
Sure. We like efficiency, so yeah, it's in the stack to go into the mix and see what happens.
Okay. Anybody got anything else? Any other audience? Any commissioners on the commissioner forum? Anybody want to say anything, address anything?
My comments from that previous thing are commissioner comments.
Okay. Do you want to set that in the middle? Comments on short-term rentals. Reiterate.
Can I say something as an out-of-towner from my seat?
You can go to the microphone. We're going to revert back to general public because we have a Firehouse Subs in Ocean Springs.
Okay.
And that's worth going back and item.
Yes. From my experience, when girlfriends, family members, people I hear talking in restaurants travel from outside of Ocean Springs to come here, whether it's festivals or Mardi Gras or whatever, a lot of that money is going to like the Beau Rivage and the casinos and further down the coast because they can't get anywhere. Like I just wanted a night or two at the Roost or the Inn, whichever it's called, and I would have had to book it like a month out. I don't operate like that. So I know that for people coming from out of town, it would be nice to have more options so that money can stay here because this is where the nice stuff and the festivals are.
And the Firehouse Subs.
Yes, and the Firehouse Subs.
Get your card.
And Andy, let me add one more thing on this, because when I spoke with the mayor about this plan, he also said
Do
the
it at
same thing.
microphone so we can get it on.
I'm using
Hi.
He also, indicated we've got more hotels going on, and therefore, we may not need all of these. They've become less needy in with the construction there at 1515 Government Street. No matter what happens at 1515 Government Street, or how many VRBOs you pop up, or how many boutique hotels we do, the number of out-of-town guests that prefer to stay in Ocean Springs is not going to be bad. I mean, the Beau's got 1,000 rooms or a whole bunch of rooms. I mean, Mike, 1,700 rooms, right? So I mean, if they can put all that on one little block in Biloxi, 200, 300, 500 units in Ocean Springs. Still is not going to be a drop in the bucket of really what's needed. So I think that these VRBOs are going to be a thing that we're going to benefit from through sales tax revenue, through of the actual lodging and of those spending in our downtown. But I do think they need to be in the right place, and I think these overlay districts that we have in place with the comp plan and the zoning ordinance are a good place to start and look for our changes.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. I'd like to get out of here. Do you want to get out of here?
Yes.
Motion by Mike.
Second.
Second by everybody else. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Taking it.
So am I right in understanding that the decision might be made in March, but it'll be